Good afternoon. What time is it by you? It's 4:30 in the afternoon in Budapest.
It's 8 p.m. here in India.
Why is the half an hour? It's like in the eastern part of Canada.
That's India.
Uh-huh. Okay. Everyone has their own math concept. Is it true? And I heard this long time ago, Indians from India are good in math because your math is on infinity, where our math is on the 10.
I don't know.
Well, you haven't been there that long to figure it out anyway. And so you're the master of a school?
Yeah, well, let's introduce ourselves and each other. So, uh,
Okay.
so I am Eric
So,
Miller. I'm Eric Miller. I'm from New York City, and actually, I attended Stuyvesant High School back in the early '70s, which was supposed to be specializing in math and science, but I didn't get too far with math. And so I'm Eric Miller, and my field is really teaching and training, especially relating to storytelling, story, and theater.
and where did you study? You have a doctorate?
Yes, I ended up doing a PhD in folklore, which is a very sweet academic discipline at the University of Pennsylvania. Uh,
Aha.
that department has closed now. But I discovered that the academic field of folklore has a long history of studying storytelling, not just the stories themselves, but ways of speaking and the social dynamics of the storytelling event. So my professors were leaders of a little revolution back in the 60s. I mean, I only got to them in the 90s, but their, 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 uh, their group was called the Performance-Centered Approach to Folklore. So they were looking at the social context around the storytelling event and all the body language, the tone of voice, who can be at the storytelling event, who cannot be at the storytelling event, all the social dynamics. And actually, I had also been trained in a similar way before them by a professional storyteller in New York named Laura Sims, who also,
Ooh.
you know that name?
I was in New York in the mid 90s to take care of my parents.
Oh.
And I was introduced somehow through the network to Laura. She had a gorgeous loft on Broadway or Third
And
Avenue.
yeah, she still has it.
And I took, we sort of had this thing for each other. And she was like a neuroscientist, like an astrophysicist of storytelling, where every syllable, every nuance was calculated, every word to elicit a, to be consciously done. And I'm a mime and a basketball player, and I like the openness and the freedom, and I do improvisation. But she was so intellectual, and she had just had a serious surgery,
Mm-hmm.
and I think she really liked me, and I was taken aback at how she expressed it to me because I only had met her a few times,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a bit overwhelming, but extraordinary.
Yes. Yes, I first met her and studied with her in the around 1975. What is that, 50 years ago? And She was part of my undergraduate degree and part of my master's degree at NYU, and we're still in touch. She very kindly leads workshops every year in the Chennai Storytelling Festival, which I organize and it's been by Zoom the last few years. So,
Wow, very, very. So we have so much in common. Two
yeah,
Millers, and I
but not
was
related, right? We
not
don't think
related.
we're related.
Actually, I have two. What's the person? Genealogists
Uh-huh.
in my family. One, my cousin Elena on my mother's side. She is an official board member of the New York Jewish Genealogical Society. So
Okay.
if the information is there, she will advise you how to find it, or she will find it. And then my other side of the family, my cousin Melinda has found. So Elena found it to 1824 in the town of Lemberg, which is called Lviv or Lvov in the Ukraine now. It maybe was Poland then. And my other cousin on my father's side, pretty much back that far also. But my legend has it, my father's father was a criminal,
Hmm.
and his name was changed when he went to Ellis Island.
Mm-hmm.
So he had three children, my grandma, my grandpa, and three children. My grandma was pregnant with my father, with my father when they were on the boat, the SS Rotterdam, on the way to New York. She thought she was seasick.
Uh-huh.
She was pregnant. So
Uh-huh.
I'm talking to you 3 tram stops from where my father was conceived
In Hungary.
in Budapest, right?
Uh-huh. Okay,
He
now we
was,
really should say what we're doing here. We're two USA people living abroad for many years, and we just decided to have a conversation. So here we
yeah.
go. So where did you grow up?
I was born in Manhattan in Beth Israel Hospital,
Uh-huh.
where Louis Armstrong also was taken care of. You know the story of Louis Armstrong? You know Louis Armstrong.
I know, but
He he was adopted by a Jewish family, and they bought him his first trumpet, by the way.
uh-huh.
And I look up those things, you know, how we connect. And at 3, we moved from the Lower East Side of Manhattan to the Bronx. And as we
Oh,
say, you got a problem with that?
me? No, I responded because our families are twins. My father's father lived in the Bronx.
Uh-huh.
And
So
my
that's a
my
joke.
family came over from Poland and Russia through Ellis Island also. So we're two
Yes.
uh, so we're two Eastern European slash USA slash uh,
Bronxites,
uh,
Bronx guys.
well, I'm not a Bronx guy. My father's father was, but the point is we're Jewish. But
So
I'm from a very atheist wing of the Jewish community. Are you from an atheist wing?
um, I'm glad you used that word. Well, anyway, my Zeta, my mother's father,
Uh-huh.
he came in 1918 to America
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
from Transylvania,
Huh.
right? And via Budapest.
Huh.
And he was an Orthodox Jew, but not with the payas and not with the beard. But he was a Frimayid, right? And for some reason, at 2 years old, I was in ultra Orthodox yeshiva.
Hmm.
So then we moved to the Bronx and I stayed in yeshiva. And when I was 8 years old, that was another beginning of my life. I went to public school
Hmm.
with girls and punch ball and stickball, not basketball yet.
Hmm.
And I was the only one of 9 grandchildren in my mother's side,
Hmm.
and 23 altogether in the grandchildren of my parents. siblings and their children. I was the only one who spoke Yiddish.
Hmm.
So I learned Yiddish. Hebrew was my first written and reading language. Street was English.
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually, that's the old Yankee Stadium up here.
Mm-hmm.
This is by a very great friend of mine, another Jewish fellow, Danny Halbin. If you
Hmm.
look up his website, amazing. He sits on a corner in the Bronx and just paints what he sees. He's
Hmm.
quite famous guy. So
Hmm.
I grew up in the shadow of the Yankee Stadium,
Mm-hmm.
and this was 161st Street. My stop was the next at 167th Street.
Mm-hmm.
So if you ever followed baseball in
I used
61,
to go to Yankee Stadium all the time.
so that in 61, when Mantle and Maris were vying to break Babe Ruth's home run record of
Uh-huh.
60, when I was in my schoolyard playing whatever, basketball, baseball, we could hear the screaming of the crowd. I went to
Hmm.
hundreds of base. We used to sneak in the seventh inning.
Hmm.
And in those days, the Yankees were the Yankees, man, Mickey Mantle and all those guys.
Where did you sit?
We would, if we bought tickets, we'd go 11 o'clock in the morning and watch batting practice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the old stadium. This was the second stadium that I showed you.
Mm-hmm.
Now on the other side is a new stadium. So through my lifetime, there was the stadium. It had big buttresses, and you could, if you were sitting behind it, you couldn't see till
Yeah.
they developed a new architecture to have all open seating. But we would sit anywhere and everywhere.
Well,
Not
I
even
went,
not,
yeah, I would go alone, usually in the 1970s, late 60s and 70s, and I would sit on the upper level, usually sort of behind first base or behind third base.
uh-huh.
One
We
time, one time, my grandfather came with me, my father's father. He was the only grandparent I knew. As I say, he came from uh, Pinsk or Minsk. I could never figure it out. And
Kids,
he-
Belarus
yes,
now,
yes.
right?
And he was a furrier. He cut furs to make fur coats.
My Zeta was also.
Okay, so there we are.
Yeah, so I was the only grandchild of his nine that could speak Yiddish.
Mm-hmm.
And he was really wild. He had a great smile. He was a loving guy, but he, one thing that the Jews from Eastern Europe did not do, to my knowledge, in my family,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't bring the oi 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 stories of terror and pogroms with them to
Mm-hmm.
put on their children and then my generation. I'm second generation American.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate that. But both of my grandfather's parents somehow, they lived in a shtetl. They both died on the same day.
Mm-hmm.
There
Sorry.
was only my grandfather and his cousin Yosef in Israel, who I knew. I lived in Israel too. And nobody would say a word about it because they were going to the land of milk and honey.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, and you probably too, that each generation had a great life. Even though my parents were poor, didn't have enough food, they would come home from school. The furniture was on the street, but they made a great life for my brother and I. My brother is 5 years younger than me. Um, I love the guy. We have family and sports, and now in this day and age, even politics that we can talk about together. But whereas, like you, I'm a traveling guy, I live away from America. He just moved into a gated community with the swimming pool is across the street,
Mm-hmm.
and they built 185 beautiful homes around a golf course.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there for a wedding in October, and we're standing outside his house, and he smiles at me. He says, "I would love to see Daddy's face if you saw this house." Do you ever think that I would be in a house like this from where we come from?
Mm.
3 little rooms, third floor walk up, in the Bronx. And my grandfather lived with us. My brother's bed came out from under mine. My grandfather slept on a cot, and you couldn't open the drawers when all the beds were opened. And
Mhm.
it was the most wonderful childhood of my life.
Hmm.
Just give me a ball, and I'm happy.
Yeah, sports was important to me too. But you see, the way my family developed, my grandfather came over, in the 1910 or something like that, and then he met another Jewish woman from a similar area, but he met her in New York, and they had my father, and my father, went to City College and became a journalist, and he wrote about movies and music for a national magazine for 42 years.
Woo!
He made money. He was an intellectual of sorts, and so he set up my generation, which I consider kind of the flake generation, because I I when I was a teenager, I decided I wanted to study and live in some exotic culture on the other side of the world. And I chose India, and I chose a particular state of India, Tamil Nadu, and um, and then I focused on getting here, and I got here, and I've settled here. But of course, I'm a terrible Jew. I mean, I've married an Indian lady, and our daughter doesn't care from being Jewish. So it's the end of the line, it seems. But as I say, my family was atheist going back. Both of my parents. My mother was also a journalist, and they told me that in the 19 they had me in what 57, but they told me that both of them in the 30s worked on communist newspapers because they told me in the 30s most bright young people were sympathetic to the idea, the fantasy of communism, and they worked on communist newspapers. Later, they got disillusioned about communism because of Stalin.
So let me go ask about is I lived on a hippie commune in the 60s and early 70s. I
Uh-huh.
lived I lived on a kibbutz in Israel.
Uh-huh.
Now the kibbutz is said to be pure socialism.
Uh-huh.
Now communism, as opposed to Stalin, Lenin communism.
Right.
Communism.
Right.
Um, So they were disillusioned at the reality of the interpretation of this concept of communism in
Mm.
Russia.
Yeah. Uh, I don't know. I'm not such an intellectual about the meaning of communism and socialism, but what I'm saying is my parents were very left wing, but retreated to just being progressive liberals like me. Atheists. In India, we're called rationalists, by the way, which I find a very charming name. Uh, so I was raised in a very artistic, journalistic, atheist Jewish culture, which by definition could only exist for another generation or two. Because when people don't believe in God, and when people do intermarry, it's going to be the end of the group, and that's what happened.
Well, that's what the Hasidim have kept the purity or the continuum of Judaism by keeping the laws. One of my best friends on earth, I was just at what's today? Monday, Saturday morning. I go every couple of times a year. Baruch Oberlander, he's a Lubavitch. If you know
Uh-huh.
about the Lubavitch, they
Yes.
had an iconic Rabbi Menachem Schneerson, who
Yes.
had this concept of training the rabbis and sending them all over the world. So when I went to Malta, Helsinki, and just to Warsaw in the last years, my friend Baruch Oberlander here, the Lubavitch rabbi, he said, visit the Lubavitch, and we had lunch, Saturday lunch in all these places, right? So I just go to watch him, and I when I'm there, I come as late as possible to the Saturday morning prayers, and I meditate, or I like to hear the chanting, or I'll dance a little bit. But I'm there to see him because it's his advice. He's my really close friend. He happens to be a rabbi. He's a professor, Dr. Rabbi. I write to him, and in the synagogue was mostly old guys with beards and some, and kids with their families, but real frimmer, religious Jews. And there's this one guy with a nice white t-shirt like this, white, and nice beard, long hippie kind of hair. And I looked at him from the other side. He looked at me. We smiled. And then when I'm sitting near where the rabbi has his podium, and he says, "You see that guy? He was a survivor of October 7th. And the young guy and his girlfriend, Tomer and Shaval, gorgeous young couple, probably late 20s, maybe early 30s. They were survived. And the story of how they survived. They jumped in their car. They drove fast to the entrance, but the entrance, the bad guys were coming in. They went to the back entrance, same thing. Somehow they ran and hid behind a bush for 2 hours. Then they ran over the rise and ran, and there was somebody in a car at the road coming, taking the people who got to the road out, and the police came. They went to not so far from the massacre to a religious village, and Shaval's mother had come from the north by car, and they took him there. And listen to this, Eric. With a smile on his face, he said, the positive about it, all those people dying and the hostages, he said, we were a buffer. We saved the greater Israel because they had 1,000 Hamas were coming. And by killing those 1,200 people, kept them there at that place, at this festival where they were.
Yes.
And what an amazing take on it. So,
but are you religious now?
I have to be straightforward with you. I'm a hippie from the 60s. So I did the brown rice and the yoga thing. I even teach
I always
yoga.
wanted to be a hippie. I was a little too young, but I'm a hippie
Right.
at heart.
And
I was 11 years old in 68, but I knew what was going on.
I was married in 68. I was 18. My wife was 16.
A little more hair.
That was me. And during this, I was a tremendous basketball player. That's actually my belief system, without calling religion. This is my belief system, is basketball.
I also played a lot of basketball.
Yeah. And I played in Israel. I played in Sweden.
Professionally.
Professionally, yeah. But I couldn't make it in the NBA, so I went to
How
Israel.
tall are you?
Now it's very interesting. Now I have a new basketball. I just got a pump and a pin, and I go to the. It's not even a schoolyard; it's a park. And here's the basket up here, and the football goal is over here, soccer goal. And so I played in Pace College. That's in downtown Manhattan by the Brooklyn Bridge. When I was 16, I played on the baseball and the basketball team. In fact, I was just writing to my accountant that at 16, I was in Pace College, and after 2 weeks, I was finished with being an accountant. I have maybe a psychological dyslexia of doing the bookkeeping of my work. So my first baseball team was the Brooklyn Dodgers. My mother took me to Ebbets Field when I was a little kid, and there was Duke Schneider.
Yeah,
Snyder, Duke Snyder, but we call him Duke Schneider.
sure.
And so that was very, I could still, we were way up in the upper deck on the first baseline, and I was rooting. And I just loved sport. And I always identified my life through sport. When I came to Hungary in 1997, after my parents had died,
Sorry.
the first thing I did was go call the Basketball Foundation of Basketball Federation of Hungary, and they attempted to get me a job as a coach, the best clubs, but they set me up so I couldn't get a job in another club.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I didn't become a coach, but I became a scout.
Okay.
And I went to all the countries in this region, to Turkey and Israel, and I got 70 young women, mostly 99% basketball scholarships,
Mm-hmm.
athletic scholarships to play in American universities. One from Bosnia, she was a sprinter, 50-meter sprinter, amazing. And another was from Romania, from Transylvania, Kati, Hungarian. She was a great tennis player, and many of them are still living in America, married to, American coaches. And it was very, very, very exciting. So when I go and visit all these countries, I visit with these young women whose life was changed by, a perfect American English language and a diploma. So they don't have to worry about if they have a bad director or leader of their workplace. They just leave and they can find 6 jobs the next day.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been involved in basketball my whole life, and as I honestly,
Mm.
my world, my belief system is basketball. You have your team,
Mm-hmm.
camaraderie, respect, uh, coordination with each other. You have the parameters and rules of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And most important, you have the other team. Without them, you got no game.
Right.
So I was always a great teammate.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of my career, we used to play, the neighborhood league in the community center. But I became a mime. So I used to have the mime class in the late afternoon and the basketball game up in the Bronx in
Mm-hmm.
the evening. So I would have my mime, my tights and leotards, and get in my van and jump in the van and go up to the Bronx. And before I just put my basketball uniform on top of my tights and leotards. And at halftime, I would change now Steph Curry is wearing leotards and
Yes,
tights.
yes. But isn't it interesting? Both of us, we were very involved with sports. I was involved with it was my whole life: basketball, baseball, American football. I was a receiver. But then around the time I was 14, 15, I kind of shifted to theater.
Great. And that's a great foundation for theater is basketball
Yes,
and
I think you
sport.
had a similar shift.
It's
But
perfect.
but now you said the magic word a few minutes ago. You said hippies. And as I say, I am a flower child. I am a hippie, although I was really too young. But but we should say it's Monday, July 29th, 8 days after USA President Joseph Biden said he would not run for president again, and 8 days after Kamala Harris began her campaign. Uh, 8 days after Donald Trump's re-election campaign was thrown into some consternation because he was no longer running against Joseph Biden. He had a new opponent. So we're 8 days in, and yesterday I heard Barbara Boxer, a former senator from California,
California. Yeah.
on YouTube. I see everything on YouTube now, of course.
Me too.
Said America is having a 5-alarm fire.
With
America is burning, Jay. Donald Trump the other day, he said he wants to be a dictator for day one. He said the other day he said to a Christian audience, "Vote for me this time, and you won't have to vote again." It sounded like he was going to change the Constitution, because he has said that he wants to change the Constitution because he believes he was cheated in 2020, and so the Constitution has to be changed. So it sounds like he's planning. I don't know how else you can reinterpret it. He said it 4 times in the space of 30 seconds. Vote this time, you won't have to vote again.
He said even he will fix it so you don't
Yes,
have to.
yes, it will be fixed.
Like
Here,
Maya,
I can read it to you.
like I heard it enough times. Thank you.
No, but the people at home haven't heard it. On
Okay,
Friday,
let's hear
26th
it.
July, he said, "Christians, get out and vote. Just this time. You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years. You know what? It'll be fixed. It'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore. My beautiful Christians, I love you. I'm a Christian. Get out. You've got to get out and vote. In 4 years, you don't have to vote again. We'll have it fixed so good, you're not going to have to vote." So how can you interpret that in any other way than there's not going to be no more voting?
So this is a Christian wave he's talking about. So
Yes.
as a Jew, I see one. I see the Inquisition. It's a Christian. This is another the 21st century Inquisition that he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So there was the Inquisition in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
There was the pogroms. There was the Crusade. Oh, first the Inquisition, the Crusades was before or after? Before, right?
Right.
The Crusades, the Inquisition, the pogroms, the Holocaust, and this is the second wave, and the Supreme Court. Those fucking six. Can I talk like this?
Yes, you can
Those,
talk like that. They gave him
those
immunity.
those six Catholic fascists. They're called.
What's a good Yiddish word? Bubba Meister?
I don't know a Yiddish word for that, but like Maya Angelou is quoted as saying, when somebody says something, believe them. You know Maya Angelou?
Yes, of course.
I happen to have the honor to perform on the same stage as she did. Okay, it was the next day, but I felt her vibe. It was in the New York it was an amazing townhouse in Gramercy Park.
Mm-hmm.
And I did my storytelling, but yeah, amazing person.
But when on July 1st of this year, when the Supreme Court said the president has immunity of anything he does officially, which means almost anything, I believe on that day, the USA stopped being a republic and a democracy, because they said the leader is above the law. And Trump has also said he's going to do his best so that police are going to be above the law. They will not be they cannot be sued. They cannot be punished for anything they can do. I don't know if he can do that on the national level, because police are state employees, but he's going to try. So the point is, it seems the democracy has been taken from us, Jay. I'm having an identity crisis, because my identity growing up in New York in the 60s was that I lived in a democracy. And of course, New York City was a sort of an outlier, because, we're communist Jews and, like that, and artists. But still, we were Americans. And now American has half disappeared, except now we have this dream, this hope that this lady, Kamala, is going to save America.
In the previous election, when those two senators from Georgia, a Jew and a black,
yes,
squeaked in to
yes,
to keep it balanced,
yes,
during that was a miracle. Being I don't live in America since '89, again,
Mm-hmm.
except for the 2 years I had to take care of my folks when they were dying. There was a survey made year on year. What, and all over the world, what is the most dangerous entity on planet Earth against world peace? And year after year after year, the United States of America. And in my lifetime, I was born in the American War in Korea. Then the American War in Vietnam. My friend Barry, we played basketball together. He's real tall. And he said during the American War in Vietnam era, he says, hey, I don't know why we're there. I never heard of one Vietnamese coming to the schoolyard and punching one American in the face. What are we doing there? So this is a militaristic history of America that bombs and destroys and destabilizes the Middle East with weapons of mass disappearance. One of my neighbors in this building I'm sitting in, he was a colonel. Unfortunately, one day he died of a heart attack right on the street. And 2 hours before, we made a joke. He was wearing a red Ferrari baseball hat, and I had, my cousin in Israel gave me his Ferrari and all these patches motorcycle jacket, and I was wearing the jacket. I had my two dogs. He had his poodle. And I say, Tibor, maybe you should give me the hat or I should give you the jacket. And we laughed. And 2 hours later, at 54, he had a heart attack and died on the street. But he was part of that group that went to Saddam Hussein in Iraq looking for the weapons of mass disappearance. And Tibor said there wasn't any. I got it. He was on that group from the United Nations. So my point is that the US has wreaked havoc across the world. And now maybe this empire of 250 years almost is at its end.
Well,
Maybe
the Republic may be at the end. It hasn't officially been an empire until now, but there's a fine book by Stephen Kinzer called Overthrow, which documents the at least 14 nations the USA has overthrown their government. And usually the pattern was that USA corporations, it began with Hawaii in the 1890s. USA corporations didn't like the way the countries were doing things. And so the USA corporations brought in the CIA, and the CIA kind of behind the scenes facilitated the overthrows and the assassinations. So what finally happened, it seems, is that all of this global murder finally was turned against the USA itself. There's very strong documentation that JFK was assassinated by people related to the 3 CIA leaders who JFK fired. And RFK, they blame this Sirhan guy who was in front of him, but RFK was shot from behind in the back of the head, and nobody's ever explained it. Martin Luther King, his family to this day, and they won a lawsuit. They won a civil lawsuit establishing that U.S. Police or military were somehow involved in the murder. So we love the USA.
So can I say,
we love the USA. We're Americans, but we realize that we realize the facts. The USA to this day has 750 military bases around the world. 750, and the USA corporations are selling like 45% of the world's weapons. The next 5 countries, you put them together, they don't come up to 45%. So country is the biggest arms seller and the biggest occupier and the biggest overthrower. What are we going to do?
and the biggest bullshit artist.
Yes, but we're putting a lot of hope on Kamala that she's going to try to fix things up. But of course, the Democratic Party is controlled by corporations almost as much as the Republicans. But if I had one piece of advice for Kamala Harris and the Democrats, which I consider myself a Democrat, establish how is income inequality established, and every day let us know if income inequality has been increased or decreased. You see, since 1970, income inequality in the USA has ballooned, has mushroomed. And that's part of what has driven these people mad who are following Donald Trump, because so many people are living paycheck to paycheck in the USA and still can't afford to pay rent. So they have this fantasy of a strong man. But
And you haven't even talked about healthcare.
that's right, healthcare and the rest of it. So Kamala Harris, in addition to calling Trump a criminal, which is fine, she really needs to focus on reducing income inequality, and then I think she can win. But of course, I'm scared to death they're going to shoot her too. I hope she has pretty good security around her.
And that Harvard guy who was a recent president, he
Which
didn't do the guy from Harvard, left-handed, he shoots left-handed in basketball.
I don't know who you mean.
You like soul music? What's the guy's name? From Hawaii, the guy from Hawaii.
Oh, Barack Obama.
That guy, yeah.
Well, Barack Obama is a great guy, but
he did nothing.
He did
Nothing
nothing
for income
Nothing. He was totally
inequality.
the Wall Street candidate from the beginning, and he did not touch income inequality. It's such a shame.
The first
And
policy he
Clinton
made,
also. We've had a whole series of Democratic presidents who presided over the increase of income inequality.
that's why I
And this
became
is
an artist and a sports guy. Where's my new, I got my new cards right here. Just the other day. You'll like it.
So how do you feel? Do you feel the Kamala Harris movement has a chance to improve any of this? Thank you, Jay Miller, from the Bronx to Budapest. Excellent.
That's the name of my new show, premiering on the 28th of September. An evening with Jay Miller, from the Bronx to Budapest, the beat goes on. Okay. So that's why I knew that shit a long time ago. And that's why at 28, I had 3 children. I had been married for 10 years with Rita, whose parents were also from Hungary. And some of the kids, her grandma's generation got out alive. And from then on, I was a mime. I sort of transitioned from basketball. I was a teacher in the New York City schools. And I've had a great, great career performing in many, many places. And the world will move around me, but I'm an independent, not as an independent voter in America. I'm an independent soul. And that is my world. And now I have the greatest job on earth. A few years ago, I get an email from a Hungarian name, sounds familiar. Jay, hi, this is Timea. Give me a call because I have the best job that you will ever dream of. And I didn't answer it because I thought it was suspect. So Saturday morning, afternoon, I'm talking in my house and she calls me. Oh, hi, Timmy. She tried to teach me Hungarian years ago. She saw my children's show in her school. It was my best children's show in all my years in Hungary. So what I am a simulated patient in 259-year-old Semmelweis Medical University in Budapest. It's one of the oldest medical universities in the world. And I am in the Institute of Languages for Specific Purposes. I work in tandem with the Hungarian English teacher and we work with people who will be medical doctors, physical therapists, dietitians, and so on, all the different modalities of healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
And they teach them a curriculum. I'm also the proofreader of all the curriculum and letters and contacts.
Mm-hmm.
And in the exams, they have to listen to a voice and then answer the questions. I'm the voice on the tape.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm proofreader, simulated patient. So when my college English teacher, Hungarian, teaches them the English, then they have to take care of me in English. So I'm a pregnant woman who's 6 months pregnant. I'm an old man with diabetes and a bad back. My favorite is I'm a 26-year-old first division footballer, and my knee exploded. And
Hmm.
now the physical therapist has to take care of me. So
Hmm.
at the beginning, the physical therapist goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry for you. Your knee is so bad." I say, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa. Take it easy." I said, "How about, hi, my name is Barbara, and I read your history, and I see that you're a very strong character and very positive, and we're going to work hard and we're going to get the best result." And she says, "Oh, yeah, wow." So I teach what they call in Columbia University, same department,
Mm-hmm.
compassionate communication. And from what you said of your training, that's, how to speak with care and kindness and directness and professionalism. So I have a cousin, Mara, who's, I'd said, is in Houston doing Fiddler on the Roof. So
Mm-hmm.
when I went to a wedding in October in New York, her brother got married. I told her what I did. She says, "Oh, my friend Tara does the same at Columbia." So now Tara and I are friends, and she has introduced me to Columbia University, and I have introduced my department director. She's an amazing young woman with two young kids, single woman, mother, and I have put her in a position where she'll have a meeting in the next 2 weeks with the rector, the rector of the university, and
Mm-hmm.
they're very interested in this partnership with Columbia University that I orchestrated.
Yes.
So I'm doing this. It's really great. And I'm with these people are gorgeous and brilliant. These are we call it the creme de la creme, right?
Mm-hmm.
And motivated and bright-eyed. So I'm on halftime of that work. And I'm a consultant. One of my friends came here as a refugee from Sierra Leone, and
Mm-hmm.
now he has a foundation where the European Union, the United Nations gives him money to feed people, educate people. And I am a consultant with him. I am training his teachers of robotics in how to teach.
Mm-hmm.
They know the electronics, whatever the science of robotics, but now how do you engage an audience? How
Mm-hmm.
do you your eye contact? How do you configure the chairs and the tables so the kids? So it's I'm doing a lot of stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where we stand now because she's a difficult person. But for the last 7 years, I've had a girlfriend who's my age, and she's Hungarian. Actually, her mother was Polish, but when the Nazis came to Poland first, the whole class of her mother's, she was in university studying chemistry, was invited to Hungary because Hungary and Poland have a very old, old line,
Mm-hmm.
uh, supportive relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So um, she has a house, is a small apartment on Lake Balaton, which is the biggest lake in Central Europe. And we've been there for so many. During the COVID, we were there for a year and a half,
Mm-hmm.
and we spend a lot of time there. So even though I live in the center of Budapest, which used to be a Jewish enclave, my neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
um, there's synagogues every 10 blocks, actually.
Hmm.
But the Jews were sent to Auschwitz from the streets of Budapest.
Hmm.
Um, my second wife, Zsuzsa, we got married in '98 for a few years. Her mom, Jewish, was taken off the streets of Budapest when she was 13 to Auschwitz.
Hmm.
And when she survived 25 years later, unfortunately, on the third try, she committed suicide.
Hmm.
And Zsuzsa was one of three daughters. She was the only one living in the house at the time. And as I say, she had to scrape her dead mother off the floor. So
Oh.
that destroyed her, and it was very difficult. Sort of the chapter of my life is called "I Slept with the Holocaust."
Hmm.
Very tragic. And Zsuzsa was Professor Dr. Zsuzsa, and she was Hungary's premier professor of French and Russian law language.
Hmm.
Whew. So she spent her life in a book, and we're still friends. We still see each other, every 2 years we have a lunch or something. But I'm here to have experiences.
Hmm.
You'll appreciate this. The father of Mara, who's doing Fiddler on the Roof in Houston, who
Hmm.
introduced me to Tara,
Hmm.
he's my cousin. Our mothers were sisters. His mother, my godmother, is 98.
Hmm.
And when we talk about this, um, he he sends me Thomas Friedman from the New York the New York Times.
Hmm.
Oh, this is what Thomas Friedman says. I said, fuck Thomas Friedman. He was pro Iraq war, pro this war, pro that war.
Hmm.
I call him 47
Hmm.
because he was born and grew up in
Hmm.
Hollis, Queens,
Hmm.
sort of at the end of Union Turnpike,
Yeah.
almost at the city line. And
Hmm.
then he moved to Manhattan by the Hudson River.
Hmm.
And that's 47 miles as the crow flies. So
Hmm.
I call it, so like you, I had this, I heard the music and I had to follow it. And
Hmm.
I was never fulfilled by just being in New York. My brother was here visiting 10 years ago with his wife, and we were in a
Hmm.
nice restaurant. He says, Jay, if you would have stayed in your original career as a teacher in New York City, you could have had a really amazing pension right now. And I told him, don't coulda, woulda, should me. Okay, thank you.
Hmm.
And do you know where I've been? So you and I, as us two Millers, we have this valuable experience in life, and
Hmm.
I appreciate that very
And I'm
much.
glad you've worked with Columbia University. I think you worked with their Division of Narrative Medicine. Does that
It
ring a
is
bell?
at this point. There's so many cross.
Yeah, but
You
they
know,
they have a famous department there called Narrative Medicine where they're into storytelling, they're into listening to the stories that the patients tell about their own lives and their own conditions. And I've worked with some members of that team also.
if you could remember names and send it
Well,
to
the
me, that
leader of that division is Dr. Rita Charon.
Rita Charon.
Yeah, Charon. But anyway, yes, we are
Let's.
we are Americans, but somehow we sidestepped the empire part of it. And
So
we are hippies, so we never went along with the program, but we are certainly Americans, right? We're Americans
um,
through and blue and inside and out. It's just a certain,
I don't know about that.
oh yes, we are. Our
Maybe,
sense of freedom, our sense of sharing and openness, it's famous for being American.
but sharing and emphasis and freedom. Maybe it's Jewish.
That's right. But I think more atheist Jewish New York. Hold on,
Um,
I got to answer the door. Just a second.
Go get them.
You don't know how much grief I've received because I, 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 I'm willing to finish other people's sentences for them. And I like to talk and I like to explain and I always feel is I'm making a contribution. But sometimes people interpret my exuberance as if I'm giving the final word. But I never mean it to be the final word. I just
Okay,
want it to be a
let
lively
me
contribution.
let me jump in at this point. I don't want to lose it. When I was bar mitzvahed, so I went to yeshiva till 8 years old. I
Mm,
couldn't care. I didn't want to hear any more Jewish stuff, right?
mm,
But
mm,
then I had to have a bar mitzvah.
mm,
And the you say finish someone's sentence. So as I'm reading the Torah in my, or if sometimes Rabbi Oberlander here calls me up to read the Torah, I'll make him happy. And if I am stuck on a word, the rabbi or the chacham, the smart guy, will jump in and give it to me.
mm,
Like, right? But
mm,
I was in Warsaw a few months ago with Anna
mm,
and visiting the Lubavitch rabbi, who
mm,
is a protege of my guy here, Baruch
mhm.
Oberlander. And they have this thing, tefillin, you know, the tefillin.
Yes.
So they feel it's a big mitzvah if they get a Jew to put on the tefillin. So I'm happy, and it keeps me to remember how to read Hebrew. So this rabbi, and I wrote it to jump on, step on my words. He carried me along with the reading, which was
Mhm,
very
mhm,
interesting. So anyway, I went to NYU and I studied educational theater for
mm,
1 semester, and then
mhm,
I had a career in educational theater. I still do it.
mhm,
Um, Let me talk about atheism.
mm.
What is atheism? What does it mean? Atheist. What is it?
You want me to answer?
Yeah. What is the definition of
Well,
atheist?
I'll just talk from my experience. When I was about 11 years old, and my parents had put me in a Christian school, Trinity, in New York City, because they said it was the best school. So there was chapel every day. But by about age 11, it occurred to me that different cultures construct, experience the divine in different ways. So obviously, it's all just constructions. And I've never had any experience with any bodiless spirit. So I don't connect with it. I haven't experienced it. I don't believe in it. Um, but atheism, to answer your question, I think it means not God.
Okay, let me jump in again. So, the person who believes in God, this
Hmm.
theist, they believe in this thing.
Hmm.
And if you don't, then you're against this thing, right?
That's right.
But if this thing doesn't exist,
Hmm.
which is a good possibility,
Yeah.
then you can't be a something that doesn't exist.
Good point. That's why I like the Indian term rationalist.
Yes, I'm more of a spiritual person. If somebody, okay, the other day, ooh, I went to buy shoes. These great Skechers, they're very light, and they
Hmm.
have this shock absorber for my old ankles. And
Hmm.
I went to the mall and I bought two pair at the same time. I
Hmm.
don't like to go shopping.
Hmm.
And so I have my big bag with two new pair of shoes in it. And I have my other old shoes, my old Skechers, that they're not comfortable anymore.
Hmm.
I go to the tram stop right across from the shopping mall to go home 2 stops.
Hmm.
And there's a homeless, derelict, smelly, dirty guy sitting on the bench at the tram stop, and he has an old beaten pair of white and red sneakers with no shoelaces, downtrodden, a bag of nothing, and I go a few feet away from him and I take off my old shoes I put on a pair of my new shoes, and I just put my old shoes right in front of him. My parents told me, you put it down, you turn around, you walk away, you don't look back.
Hmm.
So I got on the tram, I sat down on the tram, and I was ready to read my book. And the tram goes by, and this guy, he was so downtrodden that his face couldn't even make an expression, but he was tying the first one shoe on his feet.
Hmm.
So that's my religion, right? I worked in Bosnia
Hmm.
by landmines to reintegrate a school district,
Hmm.
Birchgo School District.
Hmm.
I've gotten 70 young women and a few guys scholarships to change their life. I've stopped 3 men beating women at different times. I'm here. I have to stop it. I've
Hmm.
stopped 3 pickpockets. I work in the most dangerous in Israel. I worked in a peace program between secular Jews and Christian Arabs,
Hmm.
teenagers. So this is my religion.
Well, it's your philosophy and it's your morality. It's not religion because
It's my
religion.
life. It's my
That's right.
lifestyle.
Religion involves believing in a God. And I got to tell you, my father, bless his soul, passed away, and he wouldn't believe in a soul either. Passed away 20 years ago. He used to say, "Eric, you come into this house believing in God, and I'll kick you out." He used to say, "Belief in God is a mental defect."
It's a real ruse that they pull over everybody. It's the greatest marketing routine in the history of history.
Okay.
My father,
Go
my
ahead.
my, my father was a house singer, and he we grew up with, I believe for every drop of rain that falls, a flower grows. I believe that somewhere in the darkest night a candle glows. And that's what I believe.
Hmm.
Don't, I will, I've said it to several people. I will fight for your right to believe in what you believe in. I will stand guard outside of your house of belief, but don't sell it to me. And don't put your, everything is cool, but don't put your hands on me.
Hmm.
That's the way I live my
Okay,
life. And
so you and I, we grew up Americans, we grew up Jews, we grew up related to Israel, but we didn't buy into any of it.
I was a kibbutznik in Israel. I
Yes,
did
but
not.
you know, Israel, of course, has muffed the whole thing and is doing terrible things now. It's a disaster. If there was such wisdom in Judaism, it wouldn't be like this.
One of the excuses, one of the reasons is that the caretakers of Israel through its 50-year history,
Yes,
um, they come out of the ashes of Auschwitz. So they're
yes,
already, in a way, they're twisted.
yes, 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 yes. So you and I, we got involved with sports, we got involved with art and theater, and we liberated ourselves from nationhood and religion, and we just made a life of art.
And
Bravo,
basketball,
bravo,
which is
and basketball.
an art.
Yes.
I've been writing this book on basketball for many years. Where is it? Somewhere else. It's called. Oh yeah, here it is. Is it? Yeah. I started in Toronto. I lived 5 years in Toronto,
Uh-huh.
and when I was learning how to be a teacher of children, all the different subjects. One thing that was really cool when you want to teach kids writing or storytelling, don't use paper,
Okay.
use other stuff.
Yes.
So on this board, this is my board of basketball, is a whole outline of a book on basketball for children.
Great.
And I just, maybe one day I'll actually make a book. So
Hmm.
anyway, I enjoy what I do. Um, I've been married 3 times and divorced.
Hmm.
And I'm not proud of that, but life goes on. And now I have a very difficult girlfriend. She has a very difficult history also.
Mm.
You probably know of the ideas of Noam Chomsky.
Of course.
He's one of my mentors. I was teaching 20 years ago and 25 years ago in Hungary in a new British English language school. And
Mm.
there was a kid in my class, Slava Shaman. His father was extremely rich, uh, Jewish Russian. He had the biggest juice factory in Russia 25 years ago, and then he moved to Hungary.
Hmm.
And um, Slava liked the way I talk because I talk like we are talking to my class.
Uh-huh.
And he says, Jay, I really like Noam Chomsky. I read about him. I listen to him talk on, in his lectures. I said, he says, I want to meet Noam Chomsky. I says, write to him. He says, but he's Noam Chomsky. I says, write to him. The kid has had a lifelong relation with Noam Chomsky.
Hmm. Hmm.
So Noam Chomsky, he sets the record straight for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. I appreciate him as a linguist and as a leftist. It seems he's had a stroke recently and he's not expected to return to the public sphere.
Yeah, I noticed. Why does he have to be labeled a leftist? This is what I don't understand.
Well, I'm a leftist, you're a leftist.
Whoa, 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 whoa! Am I a left? Am I a leftist because I
Oh, come
work?
on. We're hippies, we're progressives, we're
But why
radicals.
do I need a label? Why can't I just
That's right.
be?
We're just
Why
normal
can't?
people. And those
Why can't?
Republicans, see, the fascinating thing to me is we knew the Republicans were crackpots back in the 60s. We knew it in Nixon and his Southern strategy and their war on drugs. We knew it. And of course, okay, they made a lot of money in Vietnam. And then they made a lot of money in Iraq and Afghanistan. And now now they've gone totally crazy. But we knew they were crazy from the beginning. But it took
What
them
about?
40 years to fully blossom as crazy.
But what about Kennedy? He escalated Vietnam. He was a
JFK,
Democrat.
the story I
Kennedy,
know is that he was murdered because he was trying to de-escalate it.
but he escalated it to 250,000 from
But the
2000.
story, there's a very fine book called The Unspeakable by James Douglas, who documents very well that Kennedy was communicating with Khrushchev behind the scenes because neither leader, the people around both of them didn't want any peace, but they were trying to make peace. So the story I understand is that JFK was murdered because he was trying to do that.
The
But yes,
mur-
yeah, I'm sure he escalated at the beginning. He didn't realize he didn't know what he was doing, but at a certain point he was trying to de-escalate, and so he was murdered.
when
Story makes sense to me.
I was in high school in 1963. It was the last. We were moving from the next to the last period to the last period of the day. So it's like
Hmm.
two, somewhere after 2 o'clock.
Hmm.
And there were 5,000 students in my high school in the Bronx.
Hmm.
And to imagine how many people moving in the steps,
Hmm.
and they're moving both ways in the stairways. And I heard somebody said, somebody shot your cousin Kenny. And I had, unfortunately, my cousin Kenny was my age and he died like 25 years ago. He was a
Sorry.
disturbed person. And then the announcement was that, President Kennedy was shot and school will end early. And I remember everyone going, yay! But by the way, Lee Harvey Oswald and his wife, Svetlana, lived on Sheridan Avenue in the Bronx, right across the street on the same street as my high school. It's all a lot. I just want to know if the guy's in a car going this way, sitting this way, and he gets shot supposedly from there. How the hell does he go like this?
Exactly.
The fuck, right? Hello,
Exactly.
hello.
And for the record, I didn't believe this 9/11 thing either. The two planes, the one that was supposedly crashed in Pennsylvania and the one that supposedly crashed in at the Pentagon, there's not one photograph of either plane, not one. And that third World Trade Center 7, it went down later in the day, even though no plane hit it. It went down like a everyone experts said it looked like a controlled demolition.
Oh, we were just, like this.
Exactly. So, the project for the new American century a few years before that had said, well, we'll need something like a new Pearl Harbor to enable us to do, move into the Middle East and do what we need to do. And so they either made it or they got it somehow.
All I know for sure about the World Trade Center is that my brother lived in Long Island before he moved into this new house.
Mm-hmm.
He lived on a very nice street with a nice, humble house with all the different houses the same. And his next door neighbor, Adam, came out of the house and my to school. And Adam said to Paul, have a very good day, Paulie. And he went to work on the 106th floor of the World Trade Center where the plane
Oh,
went in.
sorry. Yeah.
And one of my very closest friends, whose father and mother were my parents, they grew up together. They were all first generation Americans with parents who were refugees. Stephen Hitman.
Mm.
He was he was the second or third person in the New York special ed department, city of schools. And then later on, he became one of the 6 associate New York City fire chiefs.
Mm.
And when the World Trade Center was hit, it took me 20 hours of calling every 20 minutes. Stefan. Finally, after 20 hours, he says, I'm okay. That's all I can say. So I know that Adam was incinerated and Stefan's job, he spoke 3 or 4 languages, Chinese, French, brilliant dude. He was tasked with going around the world and giving the money to the families of the people who had gotten killed in the World Trade Center. So serious. And my friend was working in Brooklyn, and he was in the subway going under the World Trade Center during that period of time. And my good friend's brother-in-law worked in the World Trade Center, and he got out. And he saw the people flying out the windows. They didn't know there was smoke. They didn't know what they were stepping into. So that's why, again, we become in the arts, we spend our life with children and self-expression, one-to-one, one to a group. And that's I'm an old fucker and I'm satisfied. You can't take that away from me. So thanks for this, Rita Charon. I'm going to see through my department. It's a department of nursing or something.
Where?
And in Columbia University.
That's narrative medicine.
Yeah, but this is
narrative medicine.
This is nursing. Nursing is part of the medical school too. So this is probably another department under the medical school. Which,
well, I think maybe Rita Charon has kind of expanded. She's taught a lot of people at Columbia about this.
Great. Wow.
All right.
So what are you going to do? It's the evening. You already had dinner?
I'm in the process of writing a fairy tale about an old king who wants to pass the land on to his daughter. It's representing Joseph Biden and Kamala Harris.
Great.
I'll
And
send you the fairy tale.
tell me about your wife and your children. You have children?
Yes, my wife is an Indian lady, a Tamil lady in particular. You know, outside India, people don't really know about the individual states of India. But I'm in Tamil Nadu, which has its own history, and my wife is a Tamil activist.
Is
Uh,
that part of the Tamil Tigers?
the Tamil Tigers were a group in Sri Lanka who
Ah,
were
okay.
fighting against being oppressed in Sri Lanka, and they were defeated there in Sri Lanka. But yes, it's the same Tamil group. But it's a shame that globally the only reason the word Tamil is known is because of that particular uprising. Tamil Nadu, Tamil culture, it's an ancient culture. It has a wonderful history, wonderful literature, and that's really what attracted me to the state. So my wife is an activist as well as a social worker and therapist, and we have one daughter who's 17 who is trying to figure out where to go to college. We're thinking maybe Holland, but if you have any other suggestions where somebody can go to college relatively inexpensively, please let me know.
Hungary, I'm not saying come to Hungary, but Hungary has a historical relationship, I guess, in modern times
Uh-huh.
with many of the Middle Eastern Arabic
Mm.
countries,
Hmm.
many of African countries. So they're invited. There's a part of the government that gives them a stipend and they live here.
Mm.
I just did a film. I
Mm.
told you a few years ago I did a film with Shahrukh Khan, a,
Hmm.
Bolly, a Bollywood film. Part of it was the wedding scenes were made here in Budapest in a famous church. And I just finished a few weeks ago two grueling weeks on death by lightning.
Mm.
It's the 1880 20th president James Garfield who was assassinated.
Oh no.
Actually, he was shot, and because of the ineptitude of the medical doctors, he
Mm.
died a few months later.
Yeah.
And on the set there were 600 people.
Mm.
So there were people, a lot of people from different African countries who were simulated Black Americans in the
Hmm.
film, and I'm friends with three or four of them now. Um, and I made friends with a guy from Jordan, but he's Palestinian.
Hmm.
So now we have opened up a serious dialogue and a friendship. We had hummus and falafel last week.
Good.
He came to Budapest. So there's every kind of person here in Budapest. So possibly there is you looking for a good price that maybe different countries have an educational bridge where they give stipends and
Hmm.
scholarships
Hmm.
to different countries. I know that in Hungary there's many people from India that are
Hmm.
that are studying.
Well, our daughter Kamala, she's named after my wife's one of her grandmothers, and according to Jewish culture, she's more Indian than Jewish. She's not Jewish at all, right?
This is why I get off the boat with the Jewish religion. Shit, there's a saying: your family member was good enough for Mengele,
Uh,
but not good enough for the rabbi.
yeah.
And my ex-wife Zhuzha, whose mother was a suicide survivor of Auschwitz,
Mm-hmm.
she had a group of friends
Hmm.
Jewish women, but
Hmm.
two of them, their father was the Jewish one, so they were rejected.
Hmm.
Their soul was pulverized by. So
Anyway, our daughter is mixed, half atheist Jewish USA, half Tamil Indian.
and she has one more year of high
Yeah, she's
school.
going into 12th grade now.
So in September, she's in her last year.
Yes, in India, the school year begins really at the beginning of August.
Okay, so she will be a high school graduate at the end of this school year.
That's right.
So you got to get on the stick right now, find a place for her to go.
Yes, I gotta hang up and help with the applications.
So I would check with the different countries. They must have some type of a educational relationship.
Mhm,
And it's
mhm,
amazing how many people I meet who are being paid, their education is being paid for from
mhm,
different African and Middle Eastern and
mhm,
different countries.
mhm.
So we have a lot to talk about. Let's keep it going, all right?
Okay, and we got to figure out who to show this recording to, if anybody.
Uh, do you have the capacity to take the audio and scramble it into text?
We'll talk about it. Let's stop recording now. Okay, I'm going to stop recording right now.
Okay.